This video today, we're going to show you how to pick up a motorcycle.
Edit that shit in later, dude. I can't hold this all day.
Not like that, Larry. Put that down. How's it going, guys? Matt with Motorworks here. And we are going to be talking about the steps you need to take to safely pick up your dropped motorcycle. Yes, I already have a bike that unfortunately has gone down. Now, before you get too upset about me just laying a motorcycle on its side, I assure you that this motorcycle had already been dropped on the right-hand side, just like it is now. I have to repair the bike, so I thought this would be the perfect time to show you guys the steps it takes to safely pick up this motorcycle without causing further injury to you or without causing further injury to the motorcycle itself. All right, now before we get started on how to pick this bike up, there's a few ways that you can drop your motorcycle. You have the high-speed crash, there's the pulled up to a stop, lost my footing and fell over, or there's my favorite, I forgot to put the bike on its side stand and oops, my bike fell over. All right. Now, in the case of I forgot to put my side stand down and oops, the bike fell over, that's going to be the one that really hurts the ego more than it hurts you yourself. Or typically that happens in a large gathering around all your friends and everybody sees it. So that's the one where you really want to try and pick that bike up as quickly as you can. And what people tend to do is they just rush in and they try and grab onto whatever they can to try and get this bike up off the ground. Please do not do that. It's not good for your back. You could also end up, depending on what you're pulling on, you could break parts on the motorcycle. And, you know, really the thing that you need to realize is the bike has already fallen over. So that's what happened. It doesn't matter how quickly you pick it up from this point, the bike has already fallen. It's essentially not going to fall anymore. If you happen to drop your bike and it was running at the time, the very first thing you want to do is you want to come down and hit the engine cutoff switch. Make sure that you cut the power to the engine. And if you're able to, then find your ignition key and turn that off as well. You want to take away any power because, believe it or not, if a bike falls down, that doesn't mean that it immediately shuts off. A lot of newer bikes have shut-off functions on them, but some of your older motorcycles, your older carbureted motorcycles, do not have a shut-off function. So you could have a case where the bike falls down and it's still running. Your rear tire could still be spinning, and that could cause, injury to you on the bike. So shut the power off, hit that engine cutoff switch, cut the key off, shut the power off to the bike.
Now, in addition to shutting the power off on the bike, if your bike is carbureted and it has a fuel shutoff valve, you want to take this time as well to, if you can access it, shut the fuel off. And if you do shut the fuel off, just remember before you start the bike back up that you'll have to then turn that fuel back on.
Now, things to expect from a dropped motorcycle. Yes, the bike can leak fluids, so it is definitely something to be wary of. Mainly the fluid that you're going to be most concerned about is gasoline, because these tanks are not airtight. So there is a possibility that a little gasoline could spill out. So again, that's why you want to make sure that you shut the bike off and there's no power going to anything. That could potentially cause a spark and maybe even a fire. Now, not all crashes are spectacular. Some of them are just a light fall and you can step away from the bike. But if you do happen to be trapped under the motorcycle, after you shut the ignition off, you want to figure out a way to get out from under that bike, whether you have to shimmy out of the bike or try and get somebody to get that motorcycle at least up enough that you can get out from under it. So hopefully that's not the case, but Mainly what I'm talking about in this video is if the bike has fallen and you are away from the motorcycle. But the second part to this is even if you did get to escape or you came out from being trapped under the bike, the next thing you want to do before you try and pick up your bike is you want to check yourself for any cuts, scrapes, anything of that nature, because you know sometimes that shock has set in and your adrenaline's going and you don't realize that maybe you are injured. So before you try and pick this bike back up, just give yourself a quick look over. Make sure that everything works, you're not bleeding profusely from somewhere and there's no bones sticking out. You want to just give yourself a good look over before you try and lift this motorcycle back up onto its tires. All right, so that's the next thing you want to do is make sure that you are physically okay and you don't need to seek immediate medical attention. All right, so after you do that, the third thing that you want to do is kind of two parts. Now, as you can see, I already have the side stand down. You know, optimally, you want to drop your bike on the right-hand side. That would be the optimum situation, is you drop the bike on the right and then you can put the side stand down. Now, if your bike is in neutral at the time of your drop, one way to tell if it is you spin the wheel. If the wheel spins, that means the bike is in neutral. After you get the side stand down, you want to put the bike in gear. Make sure that that wheel isn't spinning. Since motorcycles do not have parking brakes, when you try and upright this bike and put it back onto its tires, if it's not in gear, it has the potential to want to move forward or backward as you're trying to lift the bike up. So it would just make it very difficult to lift the motorcycle. Now, if the bike has fallen on the left-hand side, again, you're not going to worry about the side stand at that point, but you still should be able to get your hand in there and hopefully move that shifter to get that bike in gear. But once you do that, have that side stand and the bike in gear, the next step to the process is to actually get this bike on its tires. Now, to get the bike on its tires, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just sit on the motorcycle. All right, again, it has fallen over already. It can't fall over anymore. So you want to sit on the bike. You don't want to put your back into the bike, because if you do this, all you're going to do is you're just going to push the bike around. You're not going to get the bike to do what you want it to do. So you want to sit up on top of the bike. Then you want to grab onto something solid. So a handlebar is solid up front, and you just want to find something solid in the back here. And you're not really pulling on the motorcycle. You're going to be using your legs to actually push the motorcycle up. You're just grabbing onto something solid so you have something to hold on to, to kind of keep your balance as you're pushing backwards. Now, what you want to do is you want to get a good stance, and again, we're going to be using our legs, not so much our upper body, and we're just going to push backward with our feet until the bike is on its tires. All right? Now, I'm not using any effort with my hands right now. This is all my legs doing the work. All right, once we have that on the tires, we know we can really put some effort into pushing back on that bike to get it upright. So I'm just going to look behind, do a final check, make sure my side stands down, and I'm going to again grab the handlebar. This is just for stability, and then again, I'm not going to put my butt into the seat. I'm going to stay above the seat, and again, I'm going to use my hand as support back here just so that I have, again, stability. So I'm going to keep walking backwards as I'm pushing with my legs into the bike. All right? I'm pushing into the bike. I'm not using my hands on this. I'm using my legs to creep and push into the bike. All right? That's how you pick the motorcycle up. All right? So we're using all of our legs. Shouldn't be using any of your upper body. It should be all in the legs. All right? That's how you pick up the bike if it falls on the right-hand side. Now I'll show you how to do that same thing on the left-hand side of the bike. Alrighty, so here the bike has fallen on the left-hand side. Now what I'm going to do, again, cutoff switch, key, check myself out, make sure that I'm not all scraped up or bones poking out, make sure that I'm okay. I'm gonna come around here. The bike is in neutral. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and reach down and hopefully get the bike in gear. Again, if you scratch the shifter up a little bit, it's not a big deal. It already fell down, it's already scraped. So get the bike in gear. Again, that's gonna be your parking brake. So once again, we're on the left side of the bike. So all I did is make sure it was in gear, because I cannot physically put the side stand down right now. What I'm gonna do is sit on the bike here, and you just wanna grab onto something to hold you in place, push back. I'm on the tires now. Now what I want to do is re-sit down on the bike. Now you can see I'm spinning around here because I didn't get it up onto the tires quite the whole way there. So right now I'm just holding it up with my legs, and I'm just going to step back. I'm going to push into the motorcycle while doing so. And I'm just pushing the bike up. All right. Now the bike is upright. What I can do now is I can take my left hand off the seat back there, move my right hand over here, squeeze the front brake, and then I can spin around, put the side stand down, and that's how you pick it up from the left side of the bike. Now, just because you got the bike back up off the ground does not mean that the bike is ready to ride, all right? There are a few things that you need to check to make sure that this bike is ready to get back on and ride down the road. One of the most important things you need to check is to make sure that the throttle functions properly. Now the way to do that is just like I'm doing here. You want to roll on the throttle the whole way and just release it. Don't roll off, release it. It should audibly snap back to its idle position. So it should not stick at all. And a lot of times if a bike falls over, this throttle here gets hit, and sometimes pieces can break off, or this can actually slide in and stick the throttle to where you're riding, and your throttle can get stuck in whatever position you had it at. So always check and make sure that your throttle works properly. Common things that break when you drop your bike and things you should look for: brake levers snap off, clutch levers can snap off, you can have your shifter levers, they can snap off, or what's more common to happen to a shift lever is they can actually bend in and give you difficulties shifting the bike up or down. They can actually dig into the engine cases. I've seen cases where that has happened. Same thing goes with the brake lever, that can bend. Your foot pegs can break off. So you just, when you pick the bike back up, you just want to look over everything. And if there's anything that is questionable to you, give your friend a call, give a shop a call, have them pick the bike up, have the shop go over the bike and make sure that it's safe to ride. Because in addition to the things you can see, there may be other conditions that you can't see. Maybe you tweak the front end, and now when you go down the road, you have to turn the bars slightly to the right to get the bike to go straight. So it is possible that you can tweak the front end. You can also damage things like brake rotors, exhaust pipes. There's all sorts of things on a motorcycle that can be damaged in the event of a drop. If you drop the bike just right, even at 0 miles an hour, I've seen cases where engines have gotten holes put in them. So once you get the bike up, check for any excessive leaks, coolant leaking from the bike, engine oil leaking from the bike. Those are things that you shouldn't see a large abundance of. Gasoline, yes, you probably could leave a pretty good puddle of gasoline, from just a drop over, but you really shouldn't see large puddles of oil. You shouldn't see big spots of antifreeze on the ground. Those are the types of things you shouldn't see. Gasoline, I'm not too worried about. Yeah, sometimes it does spill out. Now, if everything looks good and the bike checks out and you determine it's safe to ride, expect it to take a little bit to start. So this one was on the ground for a little bit. So I don't expect every bike to start up that easy, but, you know, check to make sure it starts. Check for any excessive smoke coming out of the exhaust, because sometimes you can get oil will come up through the engine and get trapped in the top of the engine, and you may burn an excessive amount of oil after a drop. You know, that's kind of why I say shut the bike off as soon as possible to prevent kind of that from happening, but it does still happen. So yeah, before you actually set off, start the bike back up. On a fuel injected bike, it's probably going to start up relatively easily after a drop. On a carbureted bike, it might take, you know, a little bit more to get a carbureted bike to restart after a drop. If you find the bike isn't starting, don't force it. Call a garage, call a shop, get somebody out there to get the bike picked up, and just have them look over the bike. So that's how you pick up a drop bike and some of the precautions to take when picking up that dropped motorcycle. So as always, guys, I hope this video was helpful. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys for commenting and subscribing to the channel. I am looking forward to bringing out more content for you guys, but that is going to do it for this video. Thanks for checking it out, guys. We'll see you in the next one.